Martin Luther, the father of the Reformation, wrote, "For in matters of faith, every Christian is his own pope and church, and he cannot hold or observe anything that may in any way endanger the sincerity of his, this would be his private, personal, subjective faith." Now, let's talk about Luther's nominalist paradigm and the logical incoherence of sola scriptura, something I've covered at length on this channel. Now, the prevailing cultural narrative of the Reformation frames the events of the 16th century as a pious rescue mission, designed to free the pure word of God from the shackles of human corruption. However, an analysis of primary sources and the history of the movement reveals something else. When subjected to the objective rules of classical logic and historical scrutiny, the foundation of Protestantism, characterized by sola scriptura, sola fide, and the radical degradation of human reason, is exposed as internally inconsistent. It is a self-refuting framework that is built on a calculated historical pretext, built on a lie, in other words. The indulgence myth. Now, the traditional narrative claims that Martin Luther's rebellion was driven by outrage over the preaching of indulgences. While abuses in indulgence preaching undoubtedly existed, the assertion that financial corruption caused the Great Schism is a logical and historical error. In Martin Luther's 95 Theses, he writes in Thesis 71, "He who speaks against the truth of papal indulgences, let him be anathema and accursed." This is the only explicit curse in the entire document, designed to defend this official papal teaching. Given Luther's thesis, the people that he condemns are Protestants. In basic logic, the scope of its solution must correspond to the nature of the problem. Financial mismanagement or local administrative corruption does not logically dictate or justify the systematic rejection of the early church fathers, the dismantling of the sacraments, or the mutilation of the biblical canon. If a bank has corrupt accountants, you fire the accountants. You don't burn down the bank. The Catholic Church was already addressing these financial abuses internally, ultimately banning the financial exploitation of indulgences at the Council of Trent in 1563, without altering a single dogma, proving that the schism was never structurally required to solve the practical problem. The split wasn't a logical response to corruption, but a complete change in theology, an introduction of Martin Luther's private theology as his own pope and church. The indulgence crisis functioned not as the cause, but as an inflated propaganda vehicle designed to clothe radical innovations in moral urgency. We do not have to speculate on this fact. Luther explicitly confessed it to the great humanist scholar Erasmus of Rotterdam in his 1525 treatise on the bondage of the will. Luther thanked Erasmus for bypassing side issues like the papacy, purgatory, and indulgences, openly admitting that the true hinge of his rebellion was his radical theological rejection of human free will. So the free will issue is not limited to Calvinism.